So here you are.
Yes.
And how long has it been since the last record?
Well, actually, we had Hours put out a record in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
We worked on that for a long time. We started it in around...
Was that the Rick Rubin album?
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we started it in late 2003, started to do pre-production for it. And
you take your time.
yeah, for that record, it was unusual because both Rick and I take our time. I think he takes his time a little more than I do, actually. But all in all, it was an amazing experience making that record. So,
I've talked to a lot of people who have worked with Rick, and he's not he's not a very hands-on producer, is he? He doesn't come in there, sit behind the console, and say, punch up that, or let's add some effects here. He's just sort of like a guru type, spiritual mentor when he produces a record.
Yeah, and big picture stuff with him too. It's odd because we worked on the record for a while, and he didn't come to the studio one day. But
I'm sorry, that is kind of funny when you're considering how expensive this dude is.
Yeah, but he knew what was happening the whole time. And he'd get back to me and he said, "You changed that kick drum pattern on Black?" On certain songs, he knew what was up. So
you'd send him tapes?
Yeah. Or I'd go
files.
I'd go over to his other house because we were in California doing it. At he has this mansion that Chili Peppers record at. A lot of his bands have recorded. And so we'd go from that house to his other house and listen. And it was a great experience. My only problem with that record is that people haven't heard it. We loved that record. We thought we made a great record. We're really proud of it.
I was trying to describe it to somebody, and the best I could do was if you took U2 on this side and Muse on the other and went right down the middle. That's what you got.
Yeah.
And it's and as I was listening to it again today, I thought, why wasn't this record bigger? Because the sound's right.
Yeah. We're a bit frustrated with it, to tell you the truth, with that process, with that part of it. Everything making the record was great. Just how do we get people to hear it? And when the record came out, Rick had just kind of taken over Sony Music. He was running it, and there wasn't much of a staff in place. And so, that leads us to why I made the solo record. I was so emotionally drained from making that record, putting so much time into it and work. I didn't feel like I can go and do that again with a band, with what that took. So I had originally planned to go and just with my acoustic guitar, put down 10 songs, and that would be the next record. But that didn't go that way either.
So what is this record?
Actually, it's a strange record because I did some stripped down versions of some songs, 15 songs, and some of them I put more than I had planned on putting. And then
in terms of production, you made it a little bit more complicated than you wanted it to be?
Yeah, I went in and put drums and strings and bass. I went and I played everything, I wrote everything, I made the record, produced it. And it was just supposed to be a project like that for me, to where I didn't have to talk to anybody else about any of it. I just did what I was feeling. And some of the songs just felt that they belonged with this group of songs, subject matter-wise. But if I was going to make a more organic record, it created conflict because some of them felt like they should be big-sounding songs, epic production and sounds. So I finished it in a more stripped-down version, which is the original version of this record called The Heart. And recently I went back in, and those same versions of those songs, I went back in and put more production on them, electric guitars and more exciting drums and bass and strings and piano. And so we actually have two versions of the record. The next version of the record is set to be released in the UK first. And we'll start there with that and see if we end up releasing it. So it's a two-part record.
That's an interesting concept because the stripped down ones first and then the big
first. That's the thing. It's opposite what people normally.
Right, because you would do the big record, then you do the unplugged version.
Yep.
But you flip it around, which is kind of a cool way to do it, because people will have that. I think what they'll do is with the stripped down version coming first, they'll appreciate the songs for the nuances. And then once they become familiar with that, well, then it blows up into something more grand and more arena rock, or if that's the right way to.
And that's accurate, because that's the way it feels. And it's, I just recently mastered it, and it was so interesting because I really believe in the new versions. I went back and listened to the old master, which is the original release, and we just sat there, the mastering engineer and I, and said, wow, this is a really beautiful record with nothing else on it. Just the same. It didn't make me feel like, wow, this one is so much better. It just, wow, this is really different. And I love the new version, but the old one, really, it still has its place. So I'm happy about that.
That's kind of cool that you can take your time to do that, because in a normal situation, you wouldn't have that luxury of putting out two different yet similar records over a period of time.
Yeah, the label's been very, very good with that, with me. And that, to me, again, you just said another key thing. For me, the phrase "the luxury of time" has always been what I've wanted. And that's what Rick provided for us with Mercy. I've always believed that it's not, you don't have to put it out until it's great. There's no rush to put something out. You don't have to hurry up. If you really believe in what you're doing, it shouldn't have an expiration date. And
as long as you're not Axl Rose.
Yeah.
And then that's a little different. Now, how do you tour something like this?
I've done a bunch of dates on my own for a while. I went over to Europe first and did a bunch of dates with Mark Lanigan and Greg Dooley. I played a run of shows with them and with another band called Duke and the King. And so I did a whole run that way. I did a run through the States just by myself. And then recently we went to Europe and played arenas with A-ha, their final tour. So for that tour, I had a full band with me.
All different guys again, right?
Not completely. We finally found a drummer. So it's different from what we've had, but he's our guy now. And so for the most part, that was the same band, with the exception we brought in a friend of mine who can kind of multitask and sing with me. I've never had a really strong vocalist on stage with me, and I've always wanted that. So for that tour, I thought that it would be really important to have somebody singing with me.
And get those harmonies right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's how we did that tour.
Okay, a little sidebar here. I have to ask about touring with A-ha. Now that was their final tour, right?
Yeah.
People misunderstand A-ha in North America because they think of Sun Always Shines on TV and Take On Me. But if you go into continental Europe, there's way more to that band than those two, MTV era songs. And what's his name? Morton Harkett. Smart guy.
Yep. And my buddy Paul Wakhtar Savoy, who, is a big influence, the main writer in the band. Just an amazing songwriter. And so many great songs. When the tour first came up, my original team said, it's not really a good tour. You're going to be playing for a bunch of old ladies, trying to relive their youth. And I said, that's a really unfair and not accurate statement. A-ha's a real band, great. A-ha's fans over there are U2's fans. Yeah. So you can't, I don't want to knock anybody's fans. If it's a group of people who love great music, I want to play for them.
So what's happening for the rest of the summer?
I'm going to do a run of shows through the States.
Solo acoustic?
With a band.
Okay.
So it's going to be a more hyped up show. It's not going to be a quiet acoustic. We'll go to that dynamic at some point, but it'll be an exciting show. Maybe 4 or 5 of us, depending on the night. And that'll take me through most of the summer. And then I have a new project with one of the guys from A-ha now.
Oh.
After that tour. So Paul and I have a new band as well, a project that we're working on some stuff with. So
it wasn't there was somebody from A-ha was an apparatchik with Guy Berryman from Coldplay.
Probably Mags.
That's right. It was Mags. Right. Sorry, I got them mixed up.
Yeah.
Which is actually an interesting project in itself.
Really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It was completely below the radar, but anybody who followed the online aspect of what they were doing and the music that they released was like pretty surprised by it.
Yeah.
Well, good luck with all the things that you've got
Thank
going
you.
on. And
Thank you
you know,
very much.
I'm sitting here as somebody who works at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and I wish for the pornography of time. And it's cool to see somebody who actually embraces that and demands it. And I think it's really cool, and it certainly pays off in the music.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you having me here.
ExploreMusic wears English Laundry apparel.